Hey folks, Thomas here. Welcome back to Mir's Lab. In today's episode, I'd like to talk about writing music using intervals. We're going to keep things really simple today and just use the acoustic guitar, and we're going to play in the key of G. And you might have noticed that you don't even need all 6 strings on your guitar for today's lesson. In fact, just 5 strings will work just fine. And that's great because I broke my high E string whenever I was tuning my guitar earlier today. Let's get started with a really basic lesson on what musical intervals are. It's basically referring to the relationship that 2 notes have with each other. So like if we were in G, and this is like a G note on a guitar, the 3rd fret and the low E string here. So like if that's like the first note in the major scale, which is, right? Remember that one? Like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So the first note is that one, and the second note is that one, and that's like, so the relationship between these two, that's like a second interval. This would be like the second interval in like the G scale, okay? And like the 3rd note, which is mi, like do, re, mi, that would be the 3rd note, so the 3rd interval. So like this note, that would be like a 3rd interval. Those 2 notes played together. And if I were to play the 4th note, which is do, re, mi, fa, that would be like a 4th and a 5th, 6th interval, 7th, and then an 8th interval. And an 8th interval is what we call an octave. It's like the same note, but it's like 1 octave up. It's a perfect harmonic of the root note, okay? Okay, and there you go. That's basically what musical intervals are. So once again, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Okay, now that we're up to speed on musical intervals, let's move on. Something that I've noticed that people really like are repeating patterns. Repeating patterns. Repeating patterns. I think the reason why people like repeating patterns so much is because it makes things seem familiar, and then like the first time you hear it, you don't really recognize it, but then you hear it again and you recognize it and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of know that. And then the 3rd time you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, I know that. And then the 4th time you can just sort of like rock out to it, you know? So that's why it's good to repeat things like 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 times. So you get the idea. Anyhow, so let's look at combining that idea with intervals now. This is where it gets really cool. Let's start with, like, in the key of G major, let's start with a 2nd interval, like this one. Okay, I'm not even using a pick, I'm just sort of using my fingers here, okay? And you don't need nothing fancy, you can just do this with any old guitar, and we're tuned to standard here, okay? So just go like this, and go like... like, nothing fancy, you can use a pick and just go like this instead. I just don't have a pick handy here, so I'm just using my... Okay, so you can just go with a 2nd interval like this. Now, I know that doesn't sound musical yet, but wait until we add another interval to it, then it will. Check this out. Okay, so let's start with the 2nd. Then the 3rd. Then the 4th. And then back to the 2nd. Oh, the 3rd, I mean. So the 2nd. Now to the 3rd. Then the 4th, and then back to the 3rd. Isn't that nuts? All I did was I just like strummed like the 2nd interval like 8 times, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Isn't that nuts? It like sounds instantly musical, and it's like basically just a 2nd interval, a 3rd interval, a 4th interval, and then another 3rd interval, and you're just strumming them. And then like it gets really crazy when you want to spice things up, and you like don't want to play intervals in like a linear order. If you want to like make the order like crazy, check this out: like a 2nd interval, 4th, then 3rd. Then 5th, then 2nd, 4th, then 3rd, then 5th. Okay, so now let's add some more like sort of inflection to our playing, okay? So let's not just do like chugs. Let's actually like sort of like play with a little bit more nuance now, okay? So let's try that same idea of the 2nd interval, and then the 4th, and then the third, and then the fifth, okay? But I'll try and play it with a bit more nuance now, so I'm not just like chugging it as awesome as chugging is, okay? Let's go, okay? Speaking, chugging, okay, let's just get a drink, okay? Okay. Okay, here we go. It actually sounds like a real riff, you know? And it's like, it's not an actual riff. Like, it's nothing. It's like, it's literally just intervals played in like a weird order. And like, that's nuts, because you can do that with so many things. You can do like with that, like with solos up here and like all kinds of crazy things. You can do that like by like just strumming a chord on the guitar and then like just like singing the notes instead. I'm not very good at doing that with my voice. Oh, and then do 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 do. I'm not very good at picking the notes, but like maybe you are better at singing than I am, and then you can sing the intervals over top of like just one chord, and then like think about like changing the intervals as you like change like the chord as well too. Like that's where. All right, let's take this up another notch now. Okay, so let's look at that second interval, and then the third interval, and the fourth interval, and the fifth interval, and let's like designate emotions to those intervals. The first interval would just be like, well, like the root note and itself. So like it would just be like pure and like true and honest, you know? And then the second interval is really dissonant and that just means like the notes don't go together very well. Like it just sounds weird and crazy and just like chaotic. So I think that's neat, you know? Like right beside like purity, you get total chaos. It's cool, you know? And then like the next interval is a third, and that's like the most emotional one ever. That's where you get happiness and sadness depending on the key of the song. If it's in a major or a minor key, you get like a major feel, which is like happy, or like a minor third, which is that one, which is like a sadder, more somber feel, right? That's cool. So third intervals are really neat. They're like the happy or sad ones. So you get purity with the first interval, chaos with the second interval, and then you get like happy or sad with like the third intervals. Okay, so then the fourth interval is this one, which is a G and a C note. That one's sort of like really like sure-footed. I feel like that's like, yeah, like really confident and like courageous and sort of thing. Okay, and then followed by that is the fifth interval, and that's the power one. It's called the power chord on guitar. That's awesome. Oh, it's the best chord ever. And yeah, that's the power chord because it just feels really powerful, really, you know. And the that's the Radiohead interval right there, because that's the one that they always use in their music. Yeah, that's the sixth interval, and it like has like a very like thought-provoking sort of feel to it. I feel like it sounds like intellectual or something like that to me. I don't know. Okay, so let's go to the seventh interval next, which is this one right here, and you can play that like that kind of a seventh, or you can play it like there as well too. And I like seventh because it has sort of like it also sort of like the sixth, which is more like a sort of like an inquisitive feeling, but the seventh, like that one, is sort of more like and this seventh is like like oh my gosh, like just like oh my gosh, what the heck, you know? And the eighth interval is like unison. It's like back to where we started again. It's really cool, you know? So when you put them all together, you get like perfect, like total clarity with the first, and then you get the crazy, chaotic. Okay, so let's sing them, okay? So here's the root note, pure and beautiful, and the crazy, chaotic second, and the third, which sounds happy or sad, or happy. And then you get the fourth, which sounds more sure-footed in itself. And then you play the power interval, and it sounds super powerful. And then you think about it a little bit more, and you play the sixth interval. And then sometimes you think that it's just getting a little bit more wilder than you can handle, and you play the seventh. And then it gets even crazier because you can barely handle yourself with that other interval. That's another seventh. And then you're playing the eighth interval, and I can barely reach it, but it's perfect harmony. Yeah, so that's sort of like how you would put intervals into emotional contexts. I can't stop thinking about intervals over here at Mir's Lab. I think that they're one of the coolest things in the whole world, and I love adding them up and doing all kinds of fun things on the guitar with them. I hope that you enjoyed it too, and if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share, please do leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, folks.